Mm-hmm.
So, welcome to Satsang. There are a couple of questions that were sent via email, but just in case, I would answer the questions. So, Randa, you're right. Can you hear me? Is the sound okay?
Yes, the sound is good.
Okay, great. Thank you, Randa.
Picture is good too.
Okay, great. So, Randa, you asked, I'm going to start with your question, Randa, because, well, Zoe is here too, but, well, I started already. So, how do you free the mind from the desire to have experience conform to its likes and dislikes? When you realize, Randa, that those likes and dislikes, they're really not yours. There is an imagined realm of thoughts, and an imagined you, an imagined Randa, that is seeking and resisting, is desiring, has personal desires. And you believe yourself to be this person. I think a good metaphor would be the night dream. If you are dreaming that you are a 20-year-old girl in the dream, and you are desiring to travel to Hawaii, but you live in New York City and you don't have the money to go to Hawaii, and you're very unhappy, frustrated. When you wake up, you realize that these desires, they didn't belong to you. You meaning you, the reality of the dream, not you, the character that was being dreamt. So you need to contemplate what you truly are. Because if you mistake yourself to be a person that is lacking and that will reach her satisfaction and her happiness via achieving certain experiences or situations or money or relationship, as long as you take yourself to be the human form, you cannot free yourself from that realm. You remain in the grip of that realm, and you will experience the negative emotions of seeking and avoiding, disappointment, hope, getting angry. The negative emotion will arise. So the cure to the problem is for you to become really clear about what is your reality. Your reality is not human. Your reality is divine. So yes, you bring the knowledge that I am divine consciousness, universal consciousness, not a personal consciousness. Because personal consciousness still refers to a form that is dependent to where the consciousness is dependent on that form. So yes, that's the contemplation, the freedom from personal desire, is via realizing that God has no desires. God is complete fulfillment, wholeness. Consciousness means totality and wholeness, and is not lacking. So in this very moment, Randa, the reality that is experiencing this experience is not human. What you are, what you truly are, is the formless presence, the aware presence. You are that consciousness, that divine presence that has no lack. The sense of lack belongs to humanity, meaning the sense of lack belongs to the mind that's identified with the form. When you're identified with the form, then you are seeking to be loved, you are seeking to please, you are seeking to be admired, you're disappointed when you are not. You are hoping that your life will become more bountiful, so you're pursuing all sorts of material forms, and you fail to realize that it is God consciousness that provides everything. You mistake the human effort to be divine. In fact, the human effort is a competition with God's ease of being. Everything that arises for you when you turn your attention to God comes from God. And when you turn your attention away from God, you are in the misery, in the effort, in the sense of lack, in the struggle. Now, you're right, please comment on the statement that consciousness is unlimited. See, that's a very, very, very important question, Randa. Because in this very moment, it's very simple for truth lovers to come to the understanding that I am consciousness. That it is consciousness that is right now perceiving this perception. Now, if you ask yourself, is this consciousness contained in any container? Anything that is contained has a beginning and an end, has a form. Like, for example, these glasses, if I had like a glass container, they would be contained inside of the glass container. These glasses have a form. They have a beginning and an end. They have a certain shape. They have a phenomenal appearance. Consciousness does not have any phenomenal appearance. You follow? It does not have any limitation. The limitations of the mind, the limitations of thought, the limitation of form do not apply to consciousness. Thoughts are limited. Forms, worldly forms are limited. Body minds are limited. But such limitations do not apply to the divine consciousness. That's the contemplation you need to look at. God has no limitation. Consciousness has no beginning and no end. I'm not talking about some concept of consciousness. I'm talking about the reality that right now perceives this perception. The I that perceives this perception, has no limits to it, no limitations to it. That's just by turning your attention to that. It has no weight, no color, no shape, no size, no density, no beginning, no end. Given that you don't find any evidence that consciousness has any limitations, that leaves you open to the possibility that therefore it is freedom, it is borderless, meaning not personal. The term universal or impersonal would apply to consciousness, but do not apply to the phenomenal realm. Everything that you experience, like this perception right now, you experience it in your openness, in your vastness, meaning the vastness of consciousness, the vastness of awareness. Find out if that is so for yourself. You have to come to see it for yourself. That you are hearing these words effortlessly in an open listening space. It is the listening space that is doing the listening. Feel free to ask more questions if this is still not clear, Rhonda. It's an important question. Welcome. Zoe, you had asked a question and I would like to address it now. I'll read it. Namaste, Magdi. Hello, Zoe. How do you know when you have met your final teacher? How did you know? What was the experience for you? Was the experience instantaneous or gradual? Is it necessary to have one final teacher? Thank you. In the inquiry, in the contemplation of truth, in your spiritual journey, you are going to have many insights. You may meet various people, many people that will have an impact on you, that will where you will experience with them a certain aha, a certain understanding. In some cases, I would say too numerous to be able to remember. But these insights are important insights. They help in dismantling the structures, the me structure, the belief and the feeling that I am a material form, that I exist in time and space. At some point in your contemplation, you may find yourself possibly with a set of questions or just in the presence of a teacher with whom your quest ends, your inquiry, your questions end. You may have maybe a few questions, or you may spend quite a bit of time with that teacher, contemplating, listening, studying the teaching. And at some point, there is a merging, a dissolution of the remaining traces of personhood into the vastness of being. You will know yourself beyond any doubt as the peace that goes beyond the mind. You will recognize beyond any doubt the peace from which there is no return. One way of saying it is the student and the teacher merge as one. The student dissolves in the teacher and the teacher dissolves in the student. Now keep in mind that the teacher is always the self. It's always consciousness. It may appear as an external form, or it is an internal self. In some cases, you may find that there isn't one particular final teacher, but it's as if the teachings, they sort of start to synthesize around a teacher, or maybe around maybe a couple of teachers that sort of provide different pieces of the puzzle, but they're being provided more or less around the same time. And you find that all these teachings are merging in your understanding, and the sense of self is dissolving in this teaching. You may not necessarily have just one teacher towards the end of your journey, but most likely there will be one teacher that will be more influential, that will have more of an impact in releasing you, in helping you to release from the identification, the final identification. So you know you've met your final teacher when you know that you have no more questions and you are settled as the peace, the causeless peace that does not come and go. When you are no longer swayed by any phenomenal event. The experience, how was the experience for you? For me, a few years ago, I met Francis Lucille, and I started online. I met him, and I started asking questions. I don't recall, maybe 20, 30 questions over a period of a few months. And as I was asking questions, trying to understand what he was pointing at, sort of, it was very subtle. It was, I noticed that I had dissolved in the space, in the wholeness. And there was the end of separation. There was no more separation. I tried to separate, to pull anything out of, I just couldn't find any separation or questions were finished and ended. And I found a peace that has settled. And in my case, the desire to teach arose, and I started teaching. So your question was a recognition instantaneous or gradual. The recognition in my case was as if after the fact. It's like I didn't notice like any particular point where I had come to this final understanding. I noticed it after the fact, and I noticed the effect. I didn't actually notice the understanding. I noticed just the effect, the peace, the non-separation, and the solution. Everything was I, and I was everything. That's what I noticed. So I don't know if it was instantaneous or gradual. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Is it necessary to have one final teacher? Well, the teacher is always the self, Zoe. It's always consciousness. I would say that if you meet, or when you meet a teacher that is established in causeless peace and happiness, you have a great fortune. Because especially if you meet this teacher, meaning you find a little resonance with this teacher, you enjoy listening to what he or she has to say, you like their demeanor, you find yourself enjoying their company, whichever way you can. That's a very good thing. And the teacher that is established in peace and happiness will take you there, But of course, you have to have the interest. Okay, Zoe, thank you for your question. There was a question from Raul, also that was sent via email. Maybe Raul is listening on YouTube, or he can listen to the recording later. Say, hello, Magdi. What statement can you use in order to describe yourself? How can you explain who you are, how you are, and how you feel? I don't have any statement to describe myself. I don't describe myself. But of course, your question is more profound. I would say that I am not different from you, except that I know myself to be the self. And knowing oneself to be the self, beyond any doubt, is not just a conceptual knowledge. It's a knowledge that is lived, that sort of is living you in a way. You live it, but at some point there is no more you to live it. You are the self. And so the knowing oneself to be the self is experiential, is lived, and it's the experience of peace. How can you explain who you are, and how you feel? Yeah, I think I answered that. Yeah. You have to come and hang out with me a little bit, and then you will know for yourself. Yeah, mostly just hang out with Tara. We sometimes go for a walk. We go have a cup of tea, a cup of coffee. We go to work. But there is no disturbance. There is no sense of lack. There is no seeking. There is a peace that is not human. It's a peace that is divine. It's not in this realm, not a peace that belongs to this realm, to the mental realm, to the human experience. Okay, well, thank you for your question, Wal. So if there are any questions from the group here, or any other questions?
Hi, Magdi.
Hello, Nanda.
So I have been one who for a long time, decades really, have sort of poo-pooed the human and extolled the absolute, the changeless. Now, when I think, I question myself making the human any less than the divine.
What do you mean by human? Just want to make sure we're on the same page here, you know.
Just you're asking that question clarified quite a bit, because I guess I don't mean the confused neurotic human. I mean the well, I guess I must mean the whole expression, even the stuff that I personally completely avoid, like politics and
so you're talking
horror movies.
Are you talking about mind? Are you talking about like what? I'm still not clear.
What do we mean by human? That's really a better question than what I first was asking. What do I mean by human?
No, I mean, so we are talking, you know, so there is some clarity in our conversation.
Yeah. Well, you made the statement something like it's a peace that's beyond human, or not really in the human realm. It's a peace that's comes from the self, you know, peace of consciousness.
Yeah. Maybe I can clarify what I mean by that, because it's a good question. So what I mean by that is it's not a peace that is a result of mind, the result of effort, or the result of an experience, or the result of it's peace. It's the absolute peace. Absolute, meaning it is not owned by any thought, is not the result of any particular activity. Maybe I can answer or try to answer the question that I was asking. What do I mean by human? When I'm speaking about human, I'm very specific in referring to a certain belief structure and a certain feeling structure. So I believe that I'm a human being, meaning I believe that I'm a human form. I believe that I am this body, mind, and I feel like I'm a human. I feel like I'm this person. I feel like I'm this body, mind. So specifically, when I'm talking about a human, the human experience, I'm talking about an identification that competes with consciousness. Basically, it tells consciousness, you know what? It is what you are is actually me, this body, mind. Yes. So I'm very specific in my usage of the term human, and it's good that you're posing this question, because it maybe help clarify, because I use the term sometimes without clarifying it. So by human, I mean a mind identification, identifying via thought and belief. Belief is basically a set of thought that has no validation, that has no data, no data to sustain it, to establish its veridity. So this belief that I am body mind. When we say I, already we're introducing, what are we introducing? When we say I, we're introducing a reality, because I means reality. There's no doubt about the I. You can use any other term. You can use consciousness. Right. We use the term I, and we all agree in our society use the term I. We're talking about the reality that is. So when this reality is identified with the body mind, and there is a feeling that I'm a body mind, that's the human experience.
So it's almost synonymous with ego, the way you're using.
I'm open to, to how you're using the term.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. This is really the crux. Like when you talk about, I hang out with Tara, I go for a coffee, I go to work, and that, the way you were describing it, I think of that as human, but not problematic. And in that sense, there's an element of human.
What matters,
which is not different from divine.
Yes. What matters is your experience, that you are experiencing peace, and the end of seeking, the end of something lacking or missing for you. You can call yourself a human, you can call yourself whatever, it doesn't matter, it doesn't really matter. That's what matters is the peace and the happiness. And as long as you are, and that is for you to test it for yourself. As long as you are in relationship with Tara, with your partner, with your boss, or whoever, and you experience yourself as a person and the other as another, you are not at peace.
I had an interesting experience. Actually, I've been having it a few times, but I was at an outdoor concert in our town, and I was watching all the people go by, and I felt that they were myself, really. And yet I could sense, how sometimes you can sense what a person's like, whether that they have worries, and you can see it in their body posture. They have worries, or they think they're old and they're trying to look young. All these different kind of things that you can see. So I both felt that I am that person, because I didn't feel a separation, but I also didn't feel that I personally, that I have that problem, or that I, so it's an odd thing sometimes to be. Emerson talked about the one eyeball, the one great eyeball that's,
in the contemplation of truth, you have to make a decision up front. What is it that you really are interested in? You have to be clear, what is it that you're interested in? If you are interested in balancing the human and the divine, I am open for that. But first, you have to get to the divine. Okay?
Yeah, I hear that.
All right. Now, if you're interested in balancing the human and the divine, but you are not yet established in the divine, then you're toying with yourself and you're fooling yourself and others. First, you need to come to the divine. You have to have one love. And from that one love, once you are established in the divine, if it's still of interest to you to balance the divine and the human, go for it.
Well, that would be somewhat like what you sometimes advise to, as kind of a general advice, to live as consciousness would live, or as love would live,
Yes. Yes.
So is that what you mean by balancing the human and the divine?
No, no, no. When you are living as consciousness, and you are contemplating consciousness and saying, well, how would consciousness be in such situation? What would consciousness do? Would consciousness try to compete? Would consciousness be worried? Would consciousness think about what's going to happen tomorrow? When you are living as consciousness, you are just, your interest is in God. Your interest is in truth. Your interest is not wavering between me, the human, her, him, my boss. No, you're just living as consciousness. So it's very clear when you are living. You see, it's very important to live as consciousness.
Right.
And until you're establishing consciousness, live as consciousness meaning you're contemplating consciousness. You're looking at what is consciousness. What is it to be consciousness? What is it to, not theoretically, to live as consciousness? That is a very clear position you are making. It's a very clear path, which is the path, which is the path of the divine path. It's not the human path. The human path is the me, my life, my future, my family, my car, my fortune, my bank account, my stock market, my body, etc.
Yeah.
Yes. Joel, there is a surgeon, Joel Goldsmith, I think he talks about two powers, the human power and God's power. Whenever we have two powers, we have moved away from God. There's only one power, one reality, which is God's reality. So what I was saying is about the human, when you look at the human, you have to look at your experience right now, so we don't get theoretical.
Yeah, okay.
Experience right now, what is it that is human? There is right now a perception.
Yeah.
Just a perception. I'm not going to label it a human, animal, or wild. It's just it's a mystery. Okay. There is a perception.
Right.
There is bodily sensation, breath. Okay. There is some thought, arising. Okay.
I think I see where you're going.
And there is the light of awareness. The light of awareness. All these are okay. So the whole thing is one. It's not separate. It's just one energetic field, let's say, of consciousness, breathing, feeling, perceiving, etc. All right. I need to mute Emmanuel. You need to mute your mic. So. What part of it is human?
I see what you're saying.
There is nothing to be to dissect. You cannot dissect consciousness, awareness from perception or sensation.
Right. I get where you're going. So then comes a befuddlement or something where if there's some confusion about. There's commentary on perception and an idea and all those ideas of a person and a situation, and that becomes what you're calling the human.
Yeah, that's just a thought. Okay, and if you say, there is a thought that's arising. Okay, about me. Yes, there is a thought arising about me, but in that thought, there is also a belief. I mean, it is not just thought. There's a belief that I am. This thought is actually talking about what I really am. While in fact, it's just a thought, it's an image, a thought.
Yeah, right.
But when we give in to that separate reality, which is this actual, there is a me out there, a real person, out there. Then we have created a theoretical human.
Right.
We have separated ourselves from God, from truth, from wholeness, from consciousness, from the infinite. We've separated ourselves. Now there is a separate reality. There is a reality out there, a separate reality out there, in here, somewhere, whatever it is, and that's me.
Right.
Yes?
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that theoretical human is like a fictional character and on another level, and it's confusing and it's not happy. I see that.
Yes, because that's
there's theoretical religion or theoretical spirituality might be, I go to church.
Yes, There is a theoretical human that is competing with consciousness.
Right.
Okay?
So then it's all pure.
It is me that is real, and I am more real than you, and I want your gold, I want your money, I want your house, I want your car, I want, you know, yes, okay, that is the theoretical human that has separated itself from the wholeness. And so when we're talking about being fully human and fully divine, what are we talking about? Well, there aren't two. There are not two. There are not two.
This is great.
If you look directly at your experience right now,
right.
What is the human? It is you have to separate something out of your experience. Say, oh well, that's the human. Oh, no, this is the human.
Yeah, like let me take a break. I've been contemplating for 40 years. Now I'll just be a human.
Yes. So
but it doesn't work.
There are a lot of teachings that, I don't know what they are talking about. And fully human, fully divine. Like I see them all over the place. You know, be fully human, fully.
Yeah, be fully human and fully divine, right? Yes.
Now, you decide: are you fully human or fully divine? What is the thing is, if a human is if there is a reality to being human, I would be the first one to say, I want to be fully human, because if it's real, might as well be fully the reality. How can there be two reality? How can there be two reality? Because you have to pick and choose. You know, you can't have your cake and eat it to whatever, you know, express. You have to choose. Is there two reality or one?
You're making what I would have called the ego. It seems like you're broadening it to include the whole perceptual field, as long as there's identity involved in it. It's more or less the extension of the ego.
Yes.
Yeah.
As soon as there is identity, is ego. I mean, you know, that's the term. When we say ego, we're not referring to a perception or a sensation. We're referring to some identity. We're referring to a separate self. You know, we're referring to some kind of extrusion out of the wholeness of some sort of separate, you know, separate entity. It has to be real. So some separate reality. And that of course, that separate reality is always better than your separate reality, because that's you know, now we're in the realm of the multiplicity. When we're in the realm of multiplicity, we're in the realm of comparisons, of measurement, of analysis, of competition, and you name it. You name it. Now, so, you know, God does not separate itself. You know, it doesn't separate itself into infinite realities. In your night dream, you dream infinite dreams, but you don't separate yourself. In other words, if you dream of a pink elephant and you dream of a red fox, they're not separate. They're arising in the same space, in that infinite, timeless dream that you're dreaming. But they're not actual realities. There isn't the reality of the pink elephant is you, the dreamer. And the reality of the red fox is you, the dreamer.
Yes.
And in fact, when you're dreaming, there isn't a fox and the pink elephant. It is just it's just energy. It's just like music. You know, when we listen to music, we say, "Oh well, this is a fa, this is a mi, this is whatever, you know, this is this flat," and that. But in fact, it's beyond that. But it's helpful to study music in order to be able to compose it and write it, and somebody else can play it.
Right.
But the music itself is not, what they say, the territory is not the map. The music itself is beyond the notes.
Right.
You can't describe it. You see. So similarly, in your dream, in your night dream, the forms that arise, you can't really describe them. They're beyond the mind. Now the mind comes and says, okay, well, let me classify this. This is this, this is that, this is that, this is that, and it's functional. It serves a certain function. But that's not separation. Separation is when the experiencer becomes a limited consciousness. The perceiver becomes a body-mind. When right now, whatever is perceiving these words becomes a man or a woman, we have shrunk the wholeness of being. We've told God, hey, listen, we're too busy for you right now. I'm Magdi, and okay, I got you. I'm too busy for you right now, but I'll be there on Sunday or Saturday or whatever. And right now I'm Magdi, and leave me alone, okay? But you can leave me alone, but not totally. Make sure you fill my bank account, and make sure protect my children, protect my the whole thing. I have a big list, we have a big list of, and God can read you. Don't bother me. You are omnipotent. You can guess all my conditions and all my terms, and I don't have to read them for you every day. You just guess them. I'll think them, and you execute them. I'll think them, and you execute them, and leave me alone because I'm too busy being fully human right now.
I get it. Now I'll finish the story. But the real gift of God and being in relation with God is that there's only God, and there's no need for manipulations like that. And
yes, there's only one reality. What in the spiritual inquiry, we just contemplate the truth. We contemplate, meaning we contemplate God, you contemplate consciousness, you contemplate the reality. What is it that is really in your experience right now? It is consciousness. And this consciousness has no beginning, no end. It's not contained inside. There is no evidence for it that it's contained inside the skull, a human skull, or inside human flesh, or inside the walls that are made out of plaster, or it's just all that is nonsense. There is no evidence. This is all ignorance. I mean, deep ignorance. It's like believing the earth is flat. It's ridiculous. So this fully human, fully divine, I don't get it.
Well, I think I know why that is out there. Let me just give it a try. Because people get into a conceptual divine. There's a conceptual divine.
Yes.
And they may be, somehow they haven't come to a relaxation where then they open to it. It's more like they're a miserable person wearing black and, doing whatever they think is spiritual, but they're snubbing their humanity, maybe.
Yeah, there is a, if you have fully understood what it is to be fully divine, that's the end. That's the question that was asked for me before, like the final teaching. Once you come to your full divinity, you come to the full divinity of the entire realm. Not everything becomes divine, and divinity is sweet. You come to a peace, and ananda, Satchit Ananda. You come to the self. You come to the happiness. You come to the peace. You come to the intelligence. You come to the wisdom. You come to the truth, and if you're still experiencing, the me, you haven't, the me meaning with all its angst and I need to own my feelings, own my emotions. I need to embrace my fear. Embrace your fear. You're still on the path. I think it's good. Embrace your fear. Die to the fear. Dissolve in the fear. So you realize that fear can't kill you because you're not mortal. Yeah, but you're still on the path. You're still on the path, because the end of the path is the end of ignorance, the end of the separation of mankind and Godkind. It's just God.
See, now I have something else that this is pretty. I don't know if it's off topic or what, but in terms of the psychology of, say, relationship, you get to know somebody, and there's an embracing of intimacy, because it's like, oh, how wonderful, like a relief. It's a big relief to not hold your guard up, and there's an intimacy. And then after, what frequently is seen is that after some time, there's some drawing back and being some kind of posturing as the two people, and the intimacy wanes.
Yes.
And then it's a sad story.
Yes.
So, on the level of, is there still a place for the psychology of being aware of those kind of functions, or do you think that whole,
well,
because there's the shadowy, there's the I mean, you may still jump when you see a snake, and you go, well, what's that all about?
In relationship, when you meet somebody that you feel love, that you're experiencing love, there are no borders.
Yeah. Right.
There is a complete openness, and
right.
it's hopefully it's a shared openness. When it's a shared openness,
yes,
you come together. You don't come together as two persons. You come together as consciousness. You come together as love. You come together as, the expression "drunk with love." You are drunk with love.
Your mind, your conceptual thought is out the window.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Your conceptual
yes.
thought and concerns are out the window. You're in the love.
Yes, it's just love, and it's very beautiful. And you're both, you travel long distances to be together. It doesn't matter. You forget about time and space. But then, because we are not established in love,
yes,
we're still established in the person. I am still me with my story, my hope. Oh, I hope that when I meet this woman, that this and that will happen. And she's saying, oh, I hope when I meet him, this and this will happen. We have hopes. Hopes meaning some sort of conditions.
Right.
So we're still established in the human. So at some time, the human starts to arise in the love, which there's no humanity in love. It's just borderless. It's being drunk. Being drunk with love. Then the human says, oh, she's not doing this. Oh, he's not doing that. Oh, he said he would do this. He's not doing this and that and that. Before you know it, the love has a lot of weeds that are growing in it. And now you're dealing with weed. You have to lawnmower. You have to cut the weed every day. You have to cut the weed, clip the weed, and make sure you spray the stuff on the weed so the weed doesn't have insects that come and God knows what's going on. So psychology. The psychology. Who cares about the psychology? You need to understand one thing. That what you truly are gets polluted, infected by being a mortal body mind, by being a person. You can test it. You have to see it in your own experience. Over and over, you have to see it. That when you come as a person, you are coming with your conditions towards yourself, because we're very tough with ourselves. We have a lot of conditions. Self-judgment is a big deal in our psychological experience. And conditions on the other.
Right.
That is what the me is. The me perceives a separate you. And now you have to meet my conditions. And she's doing the same thing. She's looking at you saying, oh, she's doing the same thing. This is what you need to understand, that is the misery. And there is a way out of that. The way out of that is to realize what you truly are, which is the borderless presence, no conditions. Why the conditions are a burden onto oneself and a burden onto other. Love has no burdens. No burdens. Love is divine. I don't perceive you as a body mind. I perceive you as consciousness. I say hello to you as consciousness.
Mm.
I listen to you as consciousness, meaning complete openness.
Mm.
And if what you're saying is really crazy, means let's jump off the bridge and kill ourselves. So I don't think that resonates, because I'm not just listening to you openly. Consciousness also is intelligence. It's listening to itself.
Mm-hmm.
What the consciousness is saying,
beautiful.
I am beauty, I am love, I am peace and joy and relaxation. I'm sleepy, I'm gonna lie down, I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat. And guess what consciousness is saying? And if somebody says, let's jump off the bridge, consciousness says, no, I don't think so. But maybe you shouldn't do it either, but please don't. If the other person is insisting, what can we do? I don't know what we'll do. We'll do our best, but who knows how it will end up. Did we go off?
No, it's all,
off?
It's good. I don't think I don't know where that sound came from.
I don't know, this fully human, fully divine, you touch a nerve with me when you say that. Not that you said it, I think I said it.
Okay.
What is it to be? It's a good question, Ananda. What is it to be human? You ask yourself that question. Don't buy into it until you're very clear about what it means.
Right. Well, no, I like it was even if one wanted to use that that linguistic thing, fully human, fully divine, it would only work, or it would only be uplifting if in the regard that you just described. It's not embracing all this
happiness.
Yeah, and saying somehow this whole package.
Yeah, don't embrace unhappiness.
Okay.
Okay, Ananda. I'm gonna read Rhonda's question. Rhonda, you're right. I had an insight, but I am not sure if it is correct. Please comment. What arises in consciousness arises simultaneously. I had the understanding that the past, present, and future are arising simultaneously. Rhonda, when you say past, present, and future, when you say the past, you are referring to a current thought. For example, the thought of breakfast this morning. You could say that's the past, but in fact, we're not referring to an actual past. We're referring to a current thought, which is arising in consciousness, in awareness. Not in time. It's not arising in time, it's arising in awareness. When we think about the future, we say, okay, I'm going to Paris next week. That thought is also arising in consciousness. It's not arising tomorrow, because in fact, we don't have an experience of tomorrow. We only have an experience of consciousness. And the present, if you look at the present, Rhonda, you will find that our experience of the present, what we call the present, is not an experience of the present. It's an experience of consciousness. You follow? It is consciousness that we experience, consciousness experiencing itself. We don't experience past, future, present, or future. So, given that consciousness is always a conscious experiencing itself, or consciousnessing itself, one way of putting it, you could say that it is not in time. I wouldn't use the term simultaneous. We use sometimes the term eternal, that consciousness is eternal, meaning it is not in time. And we use the term consciousness is infinite, meaning it is not in space. The impression of time arises as a thought. For example, what is the time between breakfast this morning and the time now? So the thought that arises would be 10 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours. So time is a measurement between two thoughts. But in fact, we never experience two thoughts. We're always experiencing this current thought, which is consciousness. Consciousness is not a thought, but the substance of the thought is consciousness. We're always experiencing this, let's say, this one thought. So we don't experience two thoughts, and therefore in our experience, we don't actually experience a distance between two thoughts. We don't actually experience time. We don't have an experience of time. The impression that we have that, oh my God, time is dragging, is an impression when we separate ourselves as a body-mind. We separate ourselves from consciousness. We become a person living in an external world. There are objects around us. We perceive these objects. We feel that we are separate from the world. And therefore, we feel the emotions. And one of them is, oh my God, I want to get there. I want this and I want it now. But I cannot get it right now. And so therefore, I experience the angst of time, which would be a sense of lack and a sense that something is missing. And so we rush to try to fulfill this, to fulfill this sense of lack. And so we experience the pressure of time. But it all has to do with mistaking ourselves to be a separate self, a separate entity, a body-mind, a form. While our experience is an experience of consciousness. We are this borderless, effortless, aware space, awareness, presence. That is the reality of our experience. So the simultaneity that you are talking about is the, let's say, the simultaneity of consciousness. And yes, consciousness is the reality of what we refer to as past, present, and future. But in fact, there is no past, present, or future. Oh, it's okay, Rhonda. You're welcome to word your question differently, but I think it's a good question, and it's an important clarification about about consciousness. The more we have questions that relate to consciousness, the more clarity there can be, some insights we get about consciousness. And the insights about consciousness are insights about truth, about reality. And these insights, they dissolve the erroneous beliefs. So if there are any other questions. Yes, Rhonda, the simultaneity is the simultaneity of consciousness, the reality of consciousness, the eternity of consciousness. the permanence of consciousness, the wholeness of consciousness. It's not segmented, not chronological. It's universal, the universality of consciousness. Yes, Randa. Hola, Emmanuel. You're right, you've said that when the realization of consciousness is installed, the dream becomes a happy dream. Yes, I did say that. Is it possible to make a little effort of having a happy or gentle dream while one continues investigating? Yes, absolutely. Yes, the answer is yes. Even if the realization of what I am is not complete. Yes, that's very important, Emmanuel, that you live according to consciousness, according to how consciousness lives, not according to how a person lives. Because a person is into their limited me, my feelings, my desires, my ambitions, my hopes, my disappointments. What can I do to improve myself? What can I do to be happy as a person? Consciousness is universal. The happiness of consciousness is everybody's happiness. It's not a personal happiness. The freedom of consciousness is everybody's freedom. It's not the freedom of a person. The gain, the ease of being, the wealth of happiness is everybody's wealth, not my personal wealth. So it is until part of the inquiry, part of the contemplation is to live according to the highest principles. Jealousy, anger, disappointment, sorrow, regrets, all of that, consciousness doesn't do any of that. That's the human realm. And here I am using the term human again. It's the realm of the me, of being identified as a person. Jealousy, anger, envy, all the negative feelings that arise, they do not arise to consciousness. So whatever you are doing in your life that is maintaining negative emotions or that is fueling negative emotions, you are moving in the wrong direction. Self-pity, poor me. Ideas, oh, I am lonely, I am sad. That has to do with me, a person. That's not I as consciousness. Consciousness doesn't do with sadness or loneliness or aloneness. That only applies to the me, the human identity. And if you are feeding the negative emotions, they will grow. They will form roots. And then what? You become more miserable. So, yes, Emmanuel, definitely living towards the contemplation of truth and applying our understanding about what we truly are is an important part of the path. Otherwise, we have all sorts of understandings about Advaita. Who cares? We become like, we write papers and we give big speeches and everybody applauds us and say, wow, this was a great talk about Advaita. And then we go back to our misery. No. And there is no need to postpone. There is no need to delay. We do a lot of delay. Consciousness doesn't delay. If consciousness wishes something, boom. It's magical. But consciousness isn't saying, okay, here is the list of what I want. I want my bank account, fill my fridge with food, a new car. No, no, that's not, that's the me. Consciousness is already fulfilled. It's fulfillment, bounty. It doesn't wish for things out of a sense of lack. It wishes for things out of its freedom and sense of play and creativity. Well, I hope this answered your question. Okay. Life is an exploration. There's no bad things in life. No bad things. It's there for you to explore, to play, to try, to... Don't fix yourself with some idea of how it should be. Be fluid. You have free time. See what you can do with your free time. When you have work, then do your best with work. Live in your freedom. Follow your bliss. Don't define life. Don't make it rigid. Don't hold on to things. They define you, they limit you. Just experience what you experience. Whatever arises. Experience it and it comes and goes. We're all experiencing that. We're all in the same garden. Any questions?
Well, if there's still a minute.
Yes, Ananda.
It's understandable that as we age, we have less energy for, running, working long hours, drinking more than one beer. There's a lot of things. I'm finding that the changes in some of my energetic things are happening faster than I expected. Like if I go for a long walk in the park, I don't feel like doing my workout. You know, I have some weights at home.
Mm-hmm.
If I do the workout, I don't feel like going for the walk.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't seem to.
So what's the problem? What's the problem with that? What's the problem with that?
Well, you know, it's one of those things about wanting to, you know, like wanting to maintain the pace and level of experiences, I think.
Well, you know, if you don't argue with how things are unfolding, you're happier. You know, if you feel like doing the weights and you do the weights and then you don't feel like going for a walk and just enjoying a cup of tea, or beer, just enjoy your beer. I mean, okay, if you have the energy to lift the weights and also then go for the walk, then okay. But if that's not the case, then why do you want to spoil your happiness?
For preconceived expectations.
Yeah, but that limits you. I mean, why do you want to limit yourself with some expectations? Consciousness doesn't have expectations. Consciousness is complete freedom. Yes? If it wishes lifting some weights and after that he wants to sit down and have a beer, no problemo. Consciousness is happiness, ease of being, flow, not ideas about how I should be, not images about how I am or how I should be or how I was then, and oh my God, what's happening to me now, what's going to happen to me tomorrow. All that is delusion. And it's resisting the divine field. It's resisting consciousness, resisting truth, resisting the ease of being. It doesn't make sense to resist the ease of being. It doesn't with our ideas about how we should be. We have ideas about how we should be. We're very tough with ourselves. Why do we? How do you say? Why are we so unpleasant with ourselves? You know, why don't we just allow ourselves to enjoy being? You know, if I feel like sleeping, and you can, just lie down and sleep. Oh, you know, it doesn't matter if the body is saying, hey, you know, lie me down, I want to relax. Just relax. Now, if it's really important for you to build your body and to be healthy and so on, and you have to have a certain discipline because you have some goals, healthy goals, then as your body ages, maybe you have to, instead of doing 40 minutes of exercising and 40 minutes of walking, you can do 20 minutes of exercising and 20 minutes of walking. You get a little bit of and the body doesn't need to be pushed so hard. I think I was reading somewhere that all you need is like maybe 10 or 15 minutes of cardio during the day to that's you know, good enough for the body. Now maybe younger bodies need more or can have more tolerance, more endurance.
Where this is more of a really, I pretty much follow the advice you're giving. When it comes to work, I cut out doing the all-night shift. I mean, I seldom do them now.
Yes.
And it improved my no heartburn, no heart palpitation, no headaches, because it was much better. But even the shift, and I have a shift that's like noon. Sometimes it goes from noon to midnight. It depends. You know, when it goes long, I find like I'm getting so tired, even though it's not the overnight thing.
Yes. Well, can you make it like a shorter shift? Is there an option of making a shift from like maybe a couple hours shorter?
You know, I could. I'm a per diem person, you know, and basically it's the same thing as the exercise. It's shifting into what, you know, works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And,
Because
you know,
if you're
I'd
not,
like to keep the income, you know.
I understand. But, you know, if you are getting tired at work 2 or 3 times a week, for example, and
recuperating the rest of the time.
I think I would look into finding a way around that. That still maybe affects my income, but not significantly affects my income. But but it gives me something else that's really important for me, like you know, some rest. You know, the body is less stressed by trying to resist being tired of the
Right.
and what is provided is not provided via effort. What comes to us comes via consciousness, not via the human.
Nice.
Try it out.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Okay. Okay, is there any question, anybody? Okay, well, if there are no questions, it's very lovely to be with you all. And I wish you happiness, peace and happiness. And we'll see you soon on the next broadcast. Thank you all.
Thank you.